Alrighty, let's do an unboxing. I feel like I'm a little late to this party, but I'm coming through to what I'm calling the end of my compressor search. I used to use 160X's DBX 160s in my home studio. Hang on a second. And since I kind of sold off my home studio, which was 15 years ago now, something like that, really haven't found a pedal compressor that I really loved. I mean, I have a lot of nice ones, 1176 style, LA2A style. I tend to lean towards LA2A styles. Dynacomp if I really want that sustain. But I've never ever played through or tried a Fairchild style compressor. And I don't know how I missed this one coming out. I always pay attention to compression, but here we go. Airchild from Rockett. I've owned a couple Rockets over the years. I think as with most. So this is just going to be an unboxing video. I'm going to spend a little time hooking this up. Proper power to keep from voiding your warranty. And here's the pedal. The Rockett pedals always have their own little bit of a unique shape. It's not quite compact. It's always a little bit wider. I like keeping all the packaging as I receive it. Makes it easier to sell. If I should choose to do that somewhere down the line. And then what's this? Warning, 9 volt DC only, center negative. When you see stuff like that, you just know enough people just didn't have sense enough and tried to do warranty claims. Okay, so let's take a minute and hook this up. I'm gonna pull out the squeeze, talk through my signal chain real quick, and then we'll see if we can get some tones going here. So give me a moment. Thankfully, this particular setup, it isn't too hard to swap it out. Also, as you can see, and I'll run through my signal chain here real quick. So I've been bouncing back and forth between going through my inexpensive mixer, which is the Mackie VLZ 4 blah blah blah, whatever the numbers are on it. With Volt 276. Boy, I'm getting a lot of room reverb in here. I haven't recorded too much in this room, but man, the room reverb's bouncing back in my head here. But I've come to the conclusion that SSL stuff just sounds better. Obviously, this mixer is way nicer than the Mackie one. The Mackie one is very nice for its price point, but it's no comparison to this. Now, aside from the extreme versatility of the SSL6, it just pairs well with the SSL2, which is what I've switched over for my interface. And I can use the talk input, use the fold back, bring it into channel 5 here, and use the listen mic compressor. Okay, so real quick rundown on my signal chain. Fuzz. Well, my guitar is my Telecaster style Extra. And whereas that may be the worst guitar brand name you've ever heard, a man named Bill Michaelis built this guitar for me. He's from my hometown, but he also worked for Hamer, if I remember right. He made guitars for, I want to say, 30, 35 years. And he was more well known back in the day for kind of shredder guitars, you know, that whole aftermath of the Yngwie arrival. He was making 36 fret guitars, but just a great guy and a wonderful luthier with the worst guitar brand name ever. Even in the shredding heavy metal 80s days, Axtra was kind of a dumb name if you ask me, but I'll happily tell that story every time I pull this guitar out, because this is the best guitar I've ever played in all of its incarnations. I've gone back and forth over the years in regards to the electronics and pickups, but yep, this is, you know, everybody's got the one. This is the one. I don't want to get into details, but so that's my guitar. Going into fuzz, going into the Brothers AM, over to the Fairchild, out of the Fairchild down to the floor to my volume pedal, which is a Morley Alligator, into my clone looper, my MXR clone looper on the floor as well, which is kind of opened it up so I can, it's actually kind of nice, I can more readily do progressions. So I'm going to start working in some progressions to my playing again. Typically, if I got to have one hand on the looper, I got to keep it simple on the guitar, you know, for putting my background stuff together. Now I don't have to. I can use my feet to punch in and out of the loops. So out of the looper up to the power tube reactor, I'm finding that the power tube reactor, and we'll see how this Airchild is, but I'm finding that the power tube reactor does a real nice job of complementing the Brothers, whereas the Brothers does a nice job of complementing the Sunface. So I think these three together now. The reason I have the Airchild in front of the power tube reactor is with the squeeze, I just found it sounded better after the compression. So I'm going to assume that's going to feel and sound the same way with the Airchild, but I have literally no idea what it's going to sound like. So we're about to find out. So it comes back up to the power tube reactor, into the Nano Cortex. I'm running an Amalgam Audio Bassman combo, which, even though I wanted to love my own amp capture, the Amalgam Audio Bassman one sounds better to me in this setting, so that's the one I'm using. Inside the Nano Cortex, I can't show you on here. I got to figure out how to show you stuff right on screen, but I'm using some chorusing on here, some what they call circular delay, and some just a slight room reverb, because again, when it comes to modeling, I think that it's important to have a little bit of room in there to help add to the life of it, or the realism of it, whatever you want to call it. So out of the Cortex into the Zoya. Zoya is running the loophole patch, so it's only really affecting my sound while I have one of those patches engaged. It's kind of a looper slash, I don't know, I'd say it's more of a Frippertronic style delay into the Tomcat Cloudy, which I've just pretty much just rediscovered on the granular delay setting, into the Galaxy. The reason I have the Galaxy after the Tomcat, which does have reverb on it, is a lot of delay pedals sound like you know, tape delay, but none of them behave like a tape delay. This one is unique in that it behaves like a tape delay, which I really like. And if I put it before reverb, or at least a extroverted reverb, it tends to get lost, that image that it creates when it's modeling that, you know, that tape machine kind of thing. So the Galaxy, it's important for me to have it at the end. Into channels 1 and 2 on the SSL6, going through the G-Series bus compression into my live studio with all the pure settings, and I'll just show you real quick here. I've got the pure reverb, pure compressor, pure EQ, and the pure limiter in that order. I won't pull up all of because they're dynamic, they're AI driven. So the settings you see on it might change based on what input I send through. But all right, so I'm gonna mute my mic here and then start making some noise. So enjoy. All right, so first impressions, very, very smooth compression. You're hearing me through the listen mic compressor and the bus compression, which is just crushed, which is actually annoying me a little. I might have to experiment with my levels without that listen mic compressor, but the Airchild is very, very smooth and kind of, I don't know if this word makes any sense, but it's very kind of luxurious feeling. Makes me want to turn the volume up more. All right, let's try something here. Let's go back to the... All right, so you can see my line noise here. Let me be quiet for a second. So as you can see, that's probably more of a noise floor than I want. But so right now the compressor's on. I'm gonna again mute my voice, and then I'm gonna look at the noise, the line noise, and see if it's affected by it. I'm gonna do it with the volume pedal up, obviously, because the Airchild's before the volume pedal. I want to see how much it affects the noise floor. Well, pretty much not at all. I believe, so I do not believe the original Fairchilds are, obviously they have a lot of tubes in them, but I do not believe they are VCA. I kind of expected just a fancy EQ'd VCA compressor, but I got to tell you, it doesn't seem to be behaving like it. So what I want to do here is I'm going to turn my mic off again, and then we're just going to do a little ambient thing. Very smooth sounding. Well, I was a little skeptical, to be honest, that it kind of sounds different than other compressors, but I can honestly say, at least just based on my first impression here, it does sound different than other compressors. Okay, all right, I'm gonna mute my mic. Let's get a little jam going. Of course I forgot to delete my previous loop. Of course I forgot. Let's try that again. Okay, so there you go. A quick unboxing and a fast shakedown. A couple things come to mind here. So if you're looking for a compressor that's quiet, remember that a compressor is a dynamics effect as compared to, say, a delay is a graphic effect. All right? So dynamic range, the difference between the quietest and the loudest sound. Compressor takes the quietest and the loudest sound and it does this with them. That way you can bring all of that up in the mix and therefore don't lose anything off the top end, and you don't clip anything on the, or lose anything in the bottom end, you don't clip anything in the top end. That's effectively what a compressor does. So if you're looking for a compressor that's quiet, you're actually probably looking for a limiter. And forgive me, I'd have to do a little research, but I'm pretty sure you could just get a limiter that keeps your top end from getting too loud without raising your noise floor. Compressors are always going to raise your noise floor, which is why I typically put them at the front of my signal chain, because I like fuzz faces, and fuzz faces are typically pretty noisy things. So you put a compressor after, you know, all your gain, and you're going to have a pedal that's literally raising that noise floor higher than it already is. So as you can see, the noise floor going into this was fairly unaffected by this. So for somebody who wants a compressor, and let me see here, I got threshold cranked pretty much, so it's doing some work. There's no way to indicate how much work it's doing, but you can hear how much work it's doing. You know, I have the threshold at about 2 o'clock. You know, I've got blend at about 50%. Output just a little above unity gain, and then of course I'm pushing the top end a little bit, which is typical when you're heavily compressing something. So for as far as compressors go, it's going to be quieter, or at least, again, based on my first impressions here, but maybe more than anything, it sounds very like smooth and luxurious. It does not sound like any of the other compressors I've used. And if you look at my channel, I've used, well, you know, I spent some time working in a studio back in the day. I was an assistant engineer, so I've worked with all the different studio compressors, no Fairchilds, but, you know, the LA2As, the DBXs, the Urays, which are 1176s. I had in my own home studio, I used 160Xs. I've got the SSL channel compression as well as the G-Series bus compression. I've got the listen mic compression going on here. I've owned numbers of different Dynacomps and the Analog Man compressor. I've had the PC2A. I've still got the Squeeze, which I still think is a secret weapon. I've got the Warm Audio Pedal 76, 1176, you know, and that's just off the top of my head. I've owned so many compressors over the years. I think it's the most important effect. If you're recording live, well, different story. If you can get your amp loud enough, some of the stuff that I think you need compression for becomes less important. I don't think it becomes unimportant, but I've never, like, for instance, with gain, I do not like, in a live setting, I do not like using compression in a gain live setting, but in a clean setting, I do like using compression. So in this setting, look at my setting, look at my channel, you know what the hell I'm doing with this. It's borderline ridiculous for what I'm doing, but wow, in the presence of all this other equipment I'm using, as well as the compression, this thing is like some compressors, you got to turn them off to figure out what the hell they're doing. This one, it very clearly adds kind of a nice, kind of, again, luxurious feel. And again, that's kind of what a compressor is maybe best at doing, is giving a certain feel. Again, I'm not working in a mix, so I'm not speaking about how it works in a mix. I'm just talking about how it feels in my headphones and in my playing here when I'm doing the little jam like this. So, oh yeah, just immediately offhand, there is nothing that's rearing its ugly head for me. It does deliver as advertised. I'm super impressed. I don't know how the hell I missed the launch of this. I follow Rockett. But yeah, what a fantastic addition. You know, that's my first impression. We'll see what time tells, but quiet, luxurious, does what you want. I don't know, how's my sustain doing here? Just very naturally, like it lets go of the note in a very long and predictable way. It's not unnatural sounding. Oops, I'm peaking though. I gotta back off my output a little bit. I just set up this 6 and the SSL2 again, so I don't have all the levels dialed in completely. But especially for a VCA compressor, which is effectively what it is, very smooth. You know, the line noise, that's the single coil pickups. These are not wax potted pickups. These are lacquer potted, so there's gonna be more of that. I just got to remember to keep my hands on there. So with the fuzz, that's with everything turned on. This is just with the brothers on the bridge pickup. Both pickups. I might even be able to open up the top end on the power tube reactor a little bit, because it's actually seemingly taming the, well, let's turn this off and find out. So that's what I consider to be the ice pick in the forehead of the brothers. Now I'm asking for it with the brothers. By the way, I have the presence linked to the tone. I want that. I'll offset it with this stuff after down the line. Yeah, I could probably open up the tone on the power tube reactor a little bit, but I'm going to leave it for now. I love the nice like smoothness. It feels like luxurious. A little too much delay for my tastes, but hey, I'm having fun at home, who cares? So there you go. First impressions, Rockett, Airchild, what do they call the thing? Airchild 660, something like that. I don't know, they have some fancy script. I can't read. The heck. Okay, so there you go. First impressions. Double thumbs up, Airchild. 9.9 out of 10 so far. We'll see how time tells. But for a simple setup here, which again is just one fuzz, one gain, one compressor. I don't know, I'm calling this a preamp, modeler, looper, granular delay, tape emulation delay, mixer, interface, post-processing. Pretty straightforward. Just, you saw right there, it was the first time I had it out of the box, just brought it in the door. Sounds really nice, so I'm looking forward to hearing this recording. So in any case, until next time.